Hello, I'm Sneha Koshy, and you're watching Beyond the Headlines. 557 barrels of oil mixed with water have been removed from the mouth of the sea at the outskirts of Chennai. But how much was the oil that did spill into the river? Unfortunately, that is not something that we have an official count of yet. And that is not the only worrying part. The National Green Tribunal has slammed the government, saying the golden period was missed because of delay on the part of authorities in taking action. The oil spill happened on December 4th, and almost 15 days on, the oil spill is yet to be cleared. It's no easy task. But why should you be worried about this? This is an extreme weather phenomenon linked disaster, and we'll get to this in a bit. But this can happen anywhere if we are unprepared, as India and rest of the world battle some of the worst extreme weather phenomena, be it flood or drought. What has this oil spill caused, though? Let's first try and understand that. 30 villages involving around 6,000 families have been affected. Livelihoods have been affected. Most of the people living here were fishermen and their families. Even the biodiverse hotspots have been affected. There's a mangrove adjacent to the oil spill area. Even if the surface basic cleaning is done, it may take up to 6 months for flora and fauna to recover, according to officials. At least 1,000 people as part of rescue and relief teams are working tirelessly on the ground. But it's going to take several months for a complete recovery. Almost 5.5 square kilometers of sea surface has been affected. But what is the situation on the ground right now as we speak? Who better to explain this to us than the Commissioner for Greater Chennai Corporation? I'm being joined by Dr. J. Radhakrishnan. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. To start with, my first question obviously has to be, what is the status of the cleanup operations right now?
Rini, actually, what has happened, so I don't want to look at the history, but basically we have a state level and a district level committee. So far, 557 barrels, almost 111,400 liters of oil plus water has been removed from this, we call it the confluence where this river, around 4 kilometers of that area where the oil spillage was there, that has been removed. But it's very difficult to quantify what's the actual volume of water and the oil. But roughly it should be around 20-25%. The sand, the beaches around the area have been cleaned, but boats have been affected, the houses have been affected. That cleaning up process is parallelly going on.
Right. Mr. Radhakrishnan, what is the extent of the damage? I mean, fishermen have been raising concerns over their livelihoods. Biodiversity hotspots are likely to be affected in this. What are we really looking at?
Houses, in fact, got inundated, and there was a lot of oil in the houses. So that was with regard to people living in almost 5 zones in zone 1, Tiruvatiur, and next Manali zone. So where we have to completely provide them relief. There, utensils had gone, house had got damaged, oil spill was there, and we had to hold medical camps, and also including some of them were doing animal running. That is one part of it. The second part of it is, as it comes out, there is almost it's roughly around 5.5 kilometers, 4 kilometers in Buckingham Canal, and 2 kilometers in Kosatale area. Roughly around 5.5 kilometers of surface area got affected, where again, both inland fishermen, mainly inland fishermen who had their fiber boats, that got damaged, and the nets have got damaged. So both the state level committee and the district level committee is working on a compensation package along with the industries on compensating them. Then the last but not the least, most important thing is livelihood damage. I'm not saying that first I'm looking at damages. The next question, what you are talking about, is a very relevant question with regard to the biodiversity getting affected. Obviously, it's a fact that, that particular area, not just the fishes, the overall biodiversity, there's also a mangrove very adjacent to it. So that also we will have to work out with the Environment Department, Pollution Control Board, experts in this area. Here, I always believe more than just talking about the regulatory agency, experts there. How do we revive back the entire ecosystem back and the habitat back. As far as the cleaning process is concerned, maybe, and then immediate cleaning may be over in a day or two, but the medium term cleaning and the rectification may take another few months.
Well, that's, that's a lot to say. It will take few months at least, some say 6 months, but the National Green Tribunal has hit out at the government for delayed and insufficient action, Dr. Radhakrishnan. The NGT has claimed the golden period was lost because of this. How is the government, how are the officials looking at this?
See, I see in all disasters, I've been handling a number of earlier disasters also. So what happens is it's not this is the first time. This peculiar area, if it is in a sea, the depth of the sea is to 2017, we had a challenge. There are different kinds of equipment and vessels could be brought in. Here, actually, it's a it doesn't have much of a depth. So it's a matter of experts. It's a matter which the experts need to comment on, because an NGT being a body, we have to respect their views and go back and tell them that, Chennai was literally having 67 TMC of water, 2/3 of what the metro reservoir can hold, just because 4 days, almost 36 hours, the cyclone neither entered nor allowed, but huge amount of rain. Totally, making Chennai like a reservoir. So this was an offshoot of that, because most of the industries are there in that Manali area, Tiruvattur area, and point is well taken. I think we'll need to respond to it professionally by looking at it. But honestly speaking, I have been in the field as a commissioner. My workers were there in the field. Other experts were there. But honestly, everybody did his best.
Right, I get it. I mean, that's perhaps an honest admission as well. And the best that anyone can say, that all of these allegations that are being made have to be looked at very seriously at this point. Now, world over, there are some very strict regulations against oil spills. Detailed action protocols. Is the lack of this specifically in India a big reason for the delay?
See, actually, even in India, after the disaster NDMA guidelines came, Disaster Management Act, every time there has been only an improvement. And even here, I think, October, I think if I remember correctly, 2015 oil spill contingency plan national guidelines have been there. State and district level committees have been there. But unfortunately, every disaster is a learning. Of course, we cannot say that there has to be a disaster for us to learn. We have off-site, on-site committees with regard to hazardous industries. And we also need to understand that, that's again a major supplier of gas, which is again an essential commodity for that. So we need to ensure that we balance the requirements and ensure that there is zero tolerance with regard to this, and look at extreme weather events. That is perhaps one lesson which I think all urban communities need to learn, is extreme weather events nowadays are for the kind of contingency plan and the disaster management plan, mitigation, prevention, all these plans which we have, ultimately sort of, not deliberately, but tend to overlook on extreme weather events. So that is one area where we will work to improve on each time we go back on that.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Radhakrishnan, for joining us with the details of what is happening on the ground. Major concerns over what has happened, really. Thank you, Dr. Radhakrishnan, for joining us. But let's remember, even right now, as we do this discussion, we don't know what's the quantum of the oil spill, how much of oil has actually been leaked. Dr. Radhakrishnan did mention to us that around 557 barrels of water and oil mix have been removed at this point, 20% of which seems to be only oil. But this is just an estimate. There has to be very detailed probe into what has happened. There has to be some very detailed studies. The samples have to be studied to be able to even understand what the extent of this disaster has been. Well, let's also try and get in different perspectives of different stakeholders at this. Remember, this is not just a problem of livelihood, though it's a very severe issue at that end. It's also an issue of how fishermen, about how villages, how people living in these local areas have been affected. It's also about marine life. It's about biodiversity and so many other aspects that are involved in this. We'll try to bring in the different perspectives. I'm being joined by Dr. Esther Maria Selvam at this point, who's an activist, Professor Anil Gupta, he is the head of policy planning at National Institute of Disaster Management, and Vasuki Vinodini, who's the president of the education wing for the National Association of Fishermen and is somebody who has also visited this site personally. Thank you very much for joining us at this point. Well, first to you, Dr. Esther Maria Selvan, what exactly are you looking at? Is this worrying? Is this scary for what you are seeing?
Yeah, definitely. This kind of ecological damage that's been happening in the recent past, and the kind of disaster, the frequency of the disaster and the intensity of the disaster, it really impacts the excluded and marginalized community. In that manner, like if you see this impact of the oil spill, particularly the fisher folks are the worst affected because they are actually, their lives and livelihood are dependent on the coast and sea. They are living very close to the coastal areas. And therefore, when this incident has occurred, and in fact, like the oil spill water, when it got into the houses of some of the families which has been residing along the coast, it's all the more worrisome. And in fact, these fisher folks have lost their livelihood for almost so many days since the beginning of this month. And their livelihood is totally dependent, and it causes a great concern for these fisher folks, because now, like particularly among the fisher folks, the women, the fisher women, those who are vending fish in the market. In fact, in the recent past, after this incident has occurred, when they went to the market to sell the fishes, and there is no take for the fishes that they have brought in. So it is a great concern for them. And the fisher folks, for them, their boats and nets, which they are so much dependent for their livelihood, because of the oil spill on their boats and the nets, their worry is like how they will be able to use them for their future livelihood options. And also the way the people from the fishing community themselves who have been engaged in removing this oil, that is also a major concern. Initially, without providing adequate protective equipments, they have been engaged in this process. It causes a great concern for their health issues also. The government has been taking proactive steps in terms of organizing health camps and things like that. However, it requires to be more in numbers so that all people and all the necessary health access that would be required at this point of time, that may be provided to the people, and their concern regarding the health hazards that it would cause, that would be actually taken care. And the fisher folks' livelihood, whose boats and nets are damaged, they should be adequately compromised. Recently, the Tamil Nadu government has come forward.
Dr. Esther, I'll get back to you. You're making some very important points at this point, Dr. Esther. I'll just get back to you. Let me also get the initial comments from other people who are present in the panel.
Sure.
To you, Professor Anil Gupta, as Dr. Esther was making these very important points, and this is a huge concern, but would much of India at this point be thinking, why should we be really bothered about this? Could you just break this down for us, that how this is not really an isolated issue? This is something that everybody needs to take stock of.
I think I would fully agree with you. And I was listening to Dr. Radhakrishnan also. He was explaining the efforts of government on the situation. But I have three quick remarks on this. One is that this kind of incidences, like which we have started calling as NATEC, natural induced technological disasters. So one major event we recall that was the Fukushima. And in fact, such kind of scenario we have seen even in the case of the Orissa super cyclone of 1999. So these kind of incidences are not new. So we cannot say that such situations are not known or we never thought. And second thing, they globally and also in India, now the focus is understanding the cascading effects. So this kind of the challenges where primarily it was a cyclonic storm, and that has led to this kind of contamination scenario. So it has multiple layers of implications. While the efforts is on to remove the oil and then certainly to bioremediate, The bioremediation is also not that easy, particularly for such kind of oil-based chemicals. And the damage
Right.
that has already occurred, even the assessment is also not that easy. Assessment is very, very complex. The ecosystems are very complex systems, and the assessment is
Absolutely.
not that easy. The second point is that in disasters, often we focus on direct implications on human being. For example, the direct loss to life or damage to property. However, now we also need to give equal weightage to the indirect implications. Basically, here also now we see that there is huge impact on livelihood, and in turn, it is impact on social and the economic systems as well. So now we realize that it has economic implications also. Until we realize that economic implications, we do not take care of these things. So just we tend to ignore the environmental costs and ecological costs. So basically, that is also very important, and we need to rework on our post-disaster needs and damage and loss assessment process to capture these kind of things. There is a tool that is called Rapid
Right.
Environmental Impact Assessment of Disasters that ideally starts from 2 hours of the any kind of major disasters and continues to 5 days or 7 days. And I think that is very, very important that we need to be proactive. Actually, we have started reacting on this scenario of oil spill quite
Would
late.
you know if that was used this
Had
time?
we
Would you know if that was used this time, doctor?
Yeah, so had we when it was noticed and had the efforts been there timely, so we could have really taken care. And second thing, when we develop the scenario, so cyclone preparedness seldom considers this kind of things, that the oil spill or the chemical leakage. But if we recall various past cyclones, various past incidences, so when such cases are there, we should start taking care of these things also.
All right. Okay. I'm also being joined at this point by Vasuki Vinodini, who's the president for the education wing of the National Association of Fishermen.
Yes.
You've personally visited this site as well. What are you seeing in terms of the cleanup operations at this point? Who are the people who are on the ground? Of course, apart from officials, a lot of fishermen, their families have been roped in for the cleanup operations. But do they even know what they're getting into? Do they even know what this contamination could mean for them and their families beyond just livelihood, for that matter, which is also important?
Okay. Actually, we have visited the places and we also found some worrying factor that this oil spill is not a new thing. It already happened from 2010, 2017 and even in 2021 the fly ash and now it is a big disaster. But the worrying factor is oil spill does not happen because of the flood or because of the cyclone. It already happening daily and throughout the year it is happening in a mere form. But due to the cyclone and due to the flood, it got exaggerated and it entered into the villages, and wherever the river passes, the Kosatalai river to Buckingham Canal, wherever it passes, it entered to. The first point. And second point, the victim themselves, actually the fisherman is a victim, and 60 boats from 8 villages, only the fishermen 4:1. Actually, CPCL appointed and hired some other external agencies to clean up, but still for 4 fishermen, they are taking a fiber boat and one man is guiding the fishermen. So about 80% of the cleanup drive is taken by the fishermen alone without any safe gears. And because the worrying factor is it is not only the natural disaster, also it is a man-made factor. So the fishermen themselves involved into the cleanup drive, because the fishermen lost their livelihood, also they don't have any other opportunities to go up with. This disaster actually take at least 2 years to clean up and gear up for the fishermen. So they don't have any other opportunities and they don't have voices also to raise up. This is the main factor. Their socio-economic condition is very, very worsened. That is the important thing we have to
Professor
take it in.
Anil Gupta?
Actually, India is a signatory of,
All right. Activist Professor Gupta, Professor Gupta, there's an important statement which ma'am has just made, and that is, this is not just a one-off case. The severity may be a lot more this time, but this has been happening for the last several months. That's, of course, a response required to that. But what does the cleanup action now look like? What are we looking at? Is it reversible? Is a cleanup possible, considering the golden period is lost out on? It's been almost 15 days. The basic cleanup may take a day or two more, but there's so much more than just a basic surface cleanup.
The now the operations that is going on, certainly that is inevitable as well. We cannot say that we should not do that. It's very important, and certainly it will lessen to some significant level the further impacts, but the implications that have already taken place, and it's quite long time, and the lot of oil might have already gone into various layers of the ecosystem that has already undergone. And see, the impact in an ecological system cannot be just given like a blunt statements or the simple statements. It's very, very complicated thing. For example, even if I talk about the challenges of fisher folks, so the people, when the coasts are more contaminated, they have to go extra miles inside the sea to catch the fish, and that has additional challenges. For example, one challenge is that they will need to carry more drinking water, and then it will take little more time to catch the same fish. They will not get the good quality fish. So I'm just telling one example. There are several kind of complications, not only to fisher folks, but other kind of people, their engagements, the water supply systems, the biodiversity, the mangrove population, various other biological systems, and everything has an economic impact. Everything has a social impact also. Chennai is a major metro, and lot of things are interdependent on each other. And Chennai has been facing this kind of challenges one after another. Different kind of disasters, floods, then drought, then cyclones, then so basically Chennai is becoming
year
like
on year. There seems to be every year something that just keeps to be cropping up. Right.
So
Dr. Esther, if you could just quickly explain to us just how sensitive the area at this point is, the whole area that we are talking about, including the canal for that matter. How sensitive, biodiverse sensitive is this area?
See, Chennai is quite sensitive an area, and just to refer that, the headquarters of National Biodiversity Authority is located in Chennai. So in fact, the organization that is looking after the biodiversity related issues, but that is not the key concern. Key concern is that how do we act upon this issue now more prudently, and in a more coordinated way, and also take this the lessons very seriously. Every time we draw the lessons, but if we do not take the lessons seriously, that is of no use. So basically, how do we include these kind of dimensions in our cyclone preparedness or any other kind of disaster preparedness, that we also ask our industries to prepare for the cyclones, so that these kind of things should not occur. And then we also give a warning and alert to the people who are on the way of such kind of challenges, so that they are also alert and they can safeguard
Dr.
their own
Esther,
self.
you're making some very important points and something that everybody has been talking about. I'm really afraid we're totally out of time. There's so much to talk about this thing, but one thing that we must remember is there are far-reaching consequences of what has happened, but this cannot be just one-off instance. India is at the brink of several extreme weather phenomena and needs to be prepared for what may well be a disaster striking in front of any one of us. Thank you very much for watching Beyond the Headline. Goodbye.